So now that we've looked at the Google's shared responsibility model, let's take something like compute and compare it across different types of cloud computing so we can understand in practice what we would be responsible for or not responsible for. So we have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, and notice we have another one here called function as a service. You don't usually see these in the shared responsibility model, and it is a type of cloud computing, but it's kind of a bit of a hybrid, okay? So it's kind of an edge case, and it's going to just help us understand some of the caveats and how these models are a little bit flawed, okay? So starting at the bare bottom where we have the most responsibility is with bare metal. And so bare metal just means that it's a physical machine and you're basically responsible for everything else. You just want the cloud service provider to take care of the hardware for you. So you have control over the host operating system. So literally what's going to be installed on at the lowest level. And so at this level, that means you can control the hypervisor. If you want to install some type of different kind of virtualization or have no virtualization at all, it's all up to you. And so you are the most responsible at this layer. Then you have VMs, virtual machines. And so this would be Compute Engine. I wrote Compute Engine here because I'm not really sure what the offering is for bare metal. Bare metal is expensive, so that's just why, okay? But for virtual machines here, the idea is you're responsible for the guest OS configuration level. That's the OS that is running when you have a sub-machine running on top of the hypervisor. You could also install a container runtime. And so when you think of and technically, this is a little bit of an odd one because for Google, you can actually checkbox on and say, I want this virtual machine to have containerization. So technically, this would be Google's responsibility. But if you wanted to, you could install your own container runtime, okay? And so here we see Google is responsible for the hypervisor and the physical machine, all right? Looking at containers, and we have a few different options here, but we'll talk about Google Kubernetes Engine, GKE. And the idea here is that you are not worrying about the OS anymore. You're configuring your containers, and you're worried about the deployment of the containers and the storage of your containers. So Google's taking care of the OS. If there's a hypervisor, and if there's and the container runtime. So they're doing a lot of the stuff there, and so you're getting less and less responsibility. Then you have platform as a service. So this would be a managed platform like App Engine. And so here you're just uploading your code. You have some configuration of the environment. You have to choose the type of deployment strategy you want. You have to configure any associated services. But Google is going to be responsible for the server, the OS, the networking, the storage, the security, a lot more stuff, okay? Then you have software as a service. There's not a lot of SaaS products on Google Cloud, but like we'll just pull one from the Google Workspace or G Suite, like Google Docs. And so here you're just worried about the contents of the documents, the management of files, the configuration of sharing access controls. And Google is just responsible for the server, the OS, the network, the storage, security, deployments, other like more stuff than platform as a service. Then you have function as a service, and this one's a bit of an oddball because here. This is serverless compute, okay? Cloud Functions is serverless, but you upload your code. Sounds a lot like platform as a service, but you don't have to worry about deployments, about scaling, anything else. It takes care of everything. So deployment, container, runtime, networking, storage, security, physical machine, everything, okay? There's another service, I don't have it on here, but it's called Cloud Run, and that is a serverless container. And so that's where you have it, and it's technically containers, it's technically serverless, so it kind of like fits in the middle. So I'm just saying that there's some variation there. The exam's not going to be that hard to figure out what these are, but I just want you to know that there is some caveats or variations to this stuff, okay? It's not clear cut as you might think it is. Just to give a better visual here, we'll just go across bare metal, dedicated hosts, virtual machines, container functions. We didn't cover this, I just didn't have room, but there was sole tenant node. Because when you have a virtual machine, right, a virtual machine can either be single tenant or multi-tenant. And so what that means is that when it's multi-tenant, and that's the whole advantage of cloud, is that you have you have multiple customers using the same physical machine, but you're virtually isolated having your own virtual machines. But if you wanted to have the entire physical machine, you could have a sole tenant node. So you're the only person on that physical machine with those virtual machines. And so that's something that's in between bare metal and virtual machine, okay? So just looking at the responsibility of the customer, level of control, like look at code here. So code, you're responsible across the board. For app containers, it's up to the containers. At functions, you're not responsible for it. For the runtime, you have control over that in containers, right? If you want to run Ruby, you can just make a Ruby Docker file and upload it. Now you can run Ruby code, you know, if they didn't support it. For the operating system, you have control at the guest OS here for virtual machines. For the dedicated host, it's still guest OS. And then at the bare metal, it's hardware OS. For virtualization, if you want to change out the type of hypervisor or virtualization method, only bare metal is going to let you do that. So hopefully that gives you a very clear picture of the shared responsibility model in action. And for different types of categories, it's going to be completely different, okay?